I want you to imagine that you've just read Romans chapter 10, especially the verses that say, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how will they call if they have not believed? But how will they believe if they have not heard? And how will they hear unless someone tells them? And this gets us all fired up about evangelism. I need to tell my friends about Jesus. But how are we going to do this? By forming a church basketball team, running a church playgroup for parents with young children, running a men's breakfast? Or do I have to organise a big evangelistic rally? Or do I stand on a street corner handing out tracts? Or go door knocking and handing out tracts? And what track will I use? Do I use 4 spiritual laws? Do I use the bridge? Or do I use something else? No matter what we do, we might feel like we're not doing it the right way. Or some well-meaning Christian might criticize us by saying you have to do it this way or you're doing it the wrong way. You have to use this tract, or you need to mention the cross, or you need to mention the Spirit, or whatever. So what is evangelism? Is there more than one way? Or is there only one proper way to do it? Is there a wrong way? Well, to answer these questions, we need what's called a theology of evangelism. And that's what we're going to do now. So what is evangelism? How can we define it? Well, there's no one single word in the Bible that we translate into our English word for evangelism. But the Bible has a group of other words that we use to form our idea of evangelism. For example, we have the Greek word euangelion, which means the amazing news about Jesus Christ, which we translate as the gospel. We have euangelizo, the verb, the activity of telling someone the gospel. And we have euangelistes. This is the person who tells the gospel about Jesus Christ. So we put these 3 Greek words together, we have the idea of evangelism. Evangelism is what happens when we communicate the gospel, the news about Jesus, the good news that Jesus has come to save us, and the flip side, bad news that Jesus has also come to judge us. And from here, we can say some other things about evangelism. We can say there are many ways of doing it. In the New Testament, there are at least 7 different verbs that describe how we can communicate the gospel. There's the verb euangelizo, which we've just looked at, which literally means to gospel. There's martureo, which means to testify or bear witness. There's keruso, which means to herald. Parakaleo, which means to exhort. Katangelo, which means to proclaim. Prophetuo, which means to prophesy or apply the message. And then there's didasco, to teach. We can also say the essence of evangelism is the gospel message. Evangelism is what happens when we communicate the gospel message. The message itself is the DNA, the essence of evangelism. Evangelism, by definition, happens when we tell people about Jesus. The good news that Jesus has come to save and the bad news that Jesus has also come to judge. And in the Bible, there is a variety of verbs to describe how we communicate this message. So it's not how we communicate the message that makes evangelism evangelism. It's the message itself, the gospel, that makes evangelism evangelism. We can also say evangelism is not defined by the audience. We might have the wrong idea that evangelism is what happens when we tell non-Christians about Jesus, and teaching, on the other hand, is what happens when we tell Christians about Jesus. But as we've just seen, evangelism is not defined by the audience, but by the message. So whether we tell non-Christians or if we tell Christians about Jesus, it's all